Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. Lawrence?
And so here we are. Welcome, everybody. This is the Phodcast with your host, Dennis Carney. And more importantly, your guest today is the one and only Aaron Virat Cawley. Welcome, Aaron.
Dennis, thanks for having me.
No problem at all. This is all your fault, by the way, that we're doing this.
Well, it's a great initiative, to be honest. I think there's a podcast for the club and just a podcast in general to be a part of one is a great opportunity, and it's pretty exciting. So,
well, this pretty much started off as you and I having a chat about the season, me and my kind of coaching role, and talking to you as someone that I thought I could, have a chat with about what was coming up in the season. And, it kind of went from that. And then you, at the end of the thing, said, God, this is actually quite fun, enjoyable. Why don't we do something else? And then it wasn't until I think we had a kind of a club meeting on Zoom that you kind of threw it. I know it was a quiz we had, wasn't it? It was Grassie's pub quiz. And you said it in a kind of a quiet moment in between the rounds when Grassie was counting the scores. So what about this podcast? And here we are a few weeks later. It's happening.
Yeah. Well, no, it's brilliant. So that interview, or it wasn't even an interview, it felt like an interview. And I'd say, a couple of months back now.
Yeah.
I just had the feel. I mean, you got the microphone there, and I have like questions. It just felt like I was being part of like the Joe Rogan podcast or something. So that's what gave me the idea of it. And then I said I just put it in there in the group chat. Genuinely just asking. I wasn't trying to put you on the spot.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, thankfully it's come to light now. So
well, we'll see how we go. Hopefully it's going to be fun. Not hopefully. I know it's going to be fun. The only thing is I don't have a Jamie here beside me to kind of pull up random YouTube clips if you start going down that kind of. But maybe someday we can get our own Jamie to come down and do it for us.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, and we had talked. This is how this whole thing started. We started talking about what the season 2021 was going to look like, and that's where I want to start with you. What are your thoughts on the season coming forward? I mean, obviously it's impossible to be clairvoyant and know exactly when everything is going to come in, if there's going to be different waves. I don't want to talk about that thing that everyone's talking about, really. Obviously, it pertains to what we're talking about. But what I really want to talk about is what have your preparations been like this season as opposed to last season? What are the contrasts?
Diet's been a huge one. That was, I think, where I fell short last season and how injuries have come into play. Diet is an instrumental part of anyone's preparation for any sort of physical activity they're doing if they want to go to the high levels where I want to go to. So I mean, diet's been a huge one. Stretching every morning, water intake has been huge, and then just being disciplined with my work, actually planning it out, like let's say gym sessions and things like that, just putting in effort and then hopefully getting good results at the back end of it, and i.e. no injuries, because that's just constantly stop-start and is no good for anyone. So my biggest aim is keeping fit, eating well, and preventing any injuries.
The first kind of encounter I had with people talking about, you mentioned stretching there, and I remember as a Manchester United fan being extremely frustrated with Ryan Giggs being constantly injured towards the end of a season. And he talked about, ironically, yoga as being a massive influence on the prolonging of his career. And Rio Ferdinand would have said the same thing as well. These are guys who were elite athletes and prolonged their career through this process. And you're in a way kind of getting ahead of the game nearly by being aware of your body and that it's something that's going to, carry you through, and you're going to need to know when you can go deep. And literally deep being the phrase, a deep stretch, that kind of stuff. It really makes a huge difference.
Well, I mean, I'm not comparing myself to the likes of Michael Jordan or these people, but I remember watching his documentary, The Last Dance, and the way he just went about his work and the discipline he put into it. And then you think of LeBron James as well. He puts, I think it's like $1.5 million a year into his just physical preparation. Now, I don't have that money to be thrown into my physical well-being, but the same principle applies. I mean, you just have to put in the work to play and stay on the field. Otherwise, it's just basically your club cricket on a Saturday, and if you get injured, you get injured. But I mean, I want a career with longevity. I want to be able to play for Ireland, and you've just got to do like the small 1%ers or 2%ers, and that is good diet, stretching, kind of consistent gym work, and things like that. So
and here, like what I would say in his situation, someone like, I mean, you're kind of saying, well, I don't put myself up like him. Well, you haven't got his funds. cricket itself hasn't got those kind of funds, but it's all relative. What I'd ask you is, who are you saying? I mean, if it was me in your position as a young man and all this information is in front of me, who would you be saying, okay, I need to be doing more than them? As in, like, would you be looking at people in the club? Would you be looking at people in Cricket Leinster? Would you be looking at people in Cricket Ireland? Or even further afield, are you looking at pros, checking their Instagrams, checking, their social media, what kind of stuff they're doing and saying, well, I need to get up to that?
Well, you look at the bowlers for Ireland now. You have Josh, who I've played cricket with. We're the same age, so I would have played in Pembroke as a young boy, and then went up the ranks, and then all the Irish underage stuff. We went to a World Cup together. So you look at Josh and what he's gone on to achieve, and you see and you hear like all the gym work that these Cricket Ireland people are doing, and it's such a consistent thing. And that's only come into play in the last, let's say, 10 years. So it just goes to show the importance really of all that gym work. And then you look at the likes of Cawley and Steve Smith and Warner and top cricketers, like the elite cricketers, and the amount of physical work they're putting in like the gym and things like that. And these guys are obviously super successful, and they've have phenomenal records. So I mean, it's kind of proof in the pudding, really.
Well, I think even like a simple thing. I mean, I was looking at Cawley yesterday, and one visibly obvious thing about Virat Kohli is his physique. He is so he's so trim, and obviously, I mean, his running between the wickets, particularly, is a key indicator of that fitness. And the fact that he's able to bat really long in Test matches, and he's also able to really put the burners on, turning ones into twos, turning twos into threes, putting pressure on fielders, demanding higher standards again as well of the players around him on that field. And there are still one or two ghosts in that Indian team, especially in the field. There are one or two ghosts of the past. Chances going down. He dropped one himself yesterday. It was a slightly tougher chance than some of the ones that were dropped. Some of the other ones that were dropped. But that standard, you can see him like almost by his fingernails clawing the rest of the lads with him. And the IPL has a massive influence on that too.
Well, I mean, that just sums him as a character, doesn't it? I mean, he's a phenomenal captain. And he's like a mega superstar over there. And you don't get that from being or going with the flow, essentially. You have to have that drive and that determination to bring your whole country with you. And that's what he's done. I actually haven't had a chance to watch those England-India games. I've been keeping tabs on the score on Google.
Yeah.
But I've not even seen any clips. They're not even up on YouTube anywhere.
Yeah.
So I've not actually got to see the matches.
Well, it's a strange one. I think they were trying to work out what the pattern was, because it seemed to be quite formulaic, whether it was a brown soil wicket or a red soil wicket. And, they were trying to say that well, the formula is you bowl first, you win, because the dew in the evening times is just impossible to bowl, and it's a lot easier to chase for a batting side. And then England yesterday, for a variety of reasons, maybe were chasing, and it was set fair for them to follow the script, and just couldn't do it. Didn't make. Milan was kind of struggling to make runs. They gave key wickets away in key positions. Bairstow, Stokes were in, and then kind of got out. And before they knew it, they had Sam Curran and Jofra Archer trying to get 10s and 11s. And it just was never going to happen. I think Cawley went off at one stage in the field, and Rohit Sharma was the on-field captain at one stage. And, you could make a comment about, physique and stature and everything. I don't think we're talking about the same physiques between someone like Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli. Two, very similar cricketers in terms of their approach, very senior members of the team. But there is a contrast to be drawn there, even with someone like Steve Smith. You know what I mean? Steve Smith, I wouldn't say is the most athletic of the Australian people, if you were taking out of the cricket context. But in terms of as a fielder, as a catcher, as a batsman, someone who can play the long games, maybe it isn't always about that,
Yeah, well, I mean, these guys, their bodies are built for what they do. I mean, for any sport you do, you tailor make your body for the sport you're doing and what you're doing within that sport. So, I mean, Virat Kohli couldn't run in and bowl 10 overs. I mean, he could. He'll have a good general.
He'd probably do it better than me.
Yeah, he could. Like his general fitness would be really good, but I mean, he's not going to bowl these. He's not Jimmy Anderson.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the same physique as Jimmy Anderson. He's not as conditioned as Jimmy Anderson, because they're conditioned differently. One's a batter, one's a bowler. So your body's just tailor-made for your role, really. But I'm sure they all have that general level of fitness, and it's obviously a pretty high standard.
They obviously have enough to get by, and that kind of leads me into your role as a cricketer. I mean, you're a tall, fast bowler, and you've got it. Obviously, you've got the physique for being a cricketer. But the question I want to ask you is, why cricket? What got you into cricket?
Well, what got me into cricket was my dad used to play in England, and so he would have played like Taverners cricket over in England. Not a very high standard, but the love for the game was there. And he moved back to Ireland. I don't even remember the year, but I've always grown up in Ireland anyway. And I remember him taking me out of school. I think it was for the 2005 Ashes series. And I remember being taken out of school really young and going to watch that match. Not going to watch it, but like on the television.
I was thinking, my God,
yeah.
That's worth leaving school for, yeah.
Yeah, going home to watch it.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not the cricket was a reason I was brought out of school, but I remember going home that day watching it. And then we went to Argos and bought the little backyard cricket sets. And then you watch the cricketers, like Flintoff was in his prime when I was a small boy. And then you just like try and replicate these cricketers in the backyard.
Well, I mean, I think I can't prove it, but I mean, that's 16 years ago. And you look at the guys who are in their early 20s, mid-20s, those guys were at the formative ages. When you're starting to decide what kind of sport you want to, well, maybe not when you want to decide what sport you're going to choose, but certainly exactly what you're talking about, going out there and getting those sticks and the ball and the bat, the mini bat, whatever else, because you're inspired by what you've seen on television. Do you remember what test match it was you saw? The first one you saw?
It was the Ashes, 2005 Ashes series, I think.
Do you remember which specific test match though?
Oh God, wouldn't have a clue.
Or it was kind of one big blur, it kind of all just blurred into one.
I remember that's what it was, the Ashes.
Yeah.
And I even think back then it was probably more competitive than it is now. As in just, I don't know, that kind of era. I mean, the Australian golden era is what I think Gilchrist was even playing back then, like not the proper Australian team, but the golden ones.
I mean, people who say that that was the end of the golden era, but I mean, the fact that they went and whitewashed England 5-0 in the next Ashes says, well, maybe not. Maybe they still had one or two more.
Definitely not. I mean, yeah. Australia are a formidable team, but I just remember like 2005, back like when I was like 5 and 6, when these like greats of Australian cricket would have still been playing. That's that Ashes series anyway.
Well, mine was, I mean, I had absolutely no cricket in my family whatsoever. I grew up, as an only child basically in Finglas. And, I was very much interested in sport. And what really got me into it was, the way it was, the school I went to, my friends were kind of all over, because the school was in town. The school, had people from all over Dublin. And, my friends would be kind of all scattered all over the place. So quite often during the summer, I wouldn't have many people around me to play with, you know what I mean? So I'd watch the sport and end up doing it myself. And I think I remember exactly what it was. It was England-South Africa series. It was 1998, I'm going to say. Yeah, it was, because New Zealand was 99. And I think it was the last year that BBC had it. And I remember it was a test match at Edgbaston, because I remember thinking Edgbaston, what a strange name that is for a place. And it was, I think England won the series in the end, I think. But I remember going into the back garden and just taking a hurley and pretending that was a cricket bat, because I didn't have a cricket bat. There was no cricket sets in the local shops, not in Finglas anyway. And so I used my hurley or hurl, whichever way, depending on what. Actually, there's an interesting question. What do you call it?
Hurley, then it'll always be a hurley.
You see, and people get really thick about that. I think Kilkenny people say it's a hurl, and then if you're in Tip, it's hurley, and if it's hurley if it's Cork as well. It depends what part of the country you're in, Yeah,
I know people in Dublin anyway. The Dublin people call it a hurl, but it'll always be a hurley from.
Can it be classified as a Leinster thing, that it's a hurl in Leinster and it's a hurley in Munster?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I've just always known it as a hurley. I've never, like people who call it a hurl, I find myself correcting them, but then it's just.
Yeah, I can imagine. It sounds like it sounds like an American talking about getting sick. I'm gonna hurl, man. So yeah, and I think it just started from there with me, using whatever I had, a tennis ball and a hurl, and a hurley, whatever. Sorry, a come on. We just call it a come on. And just thrown up against the wall. And then the next thing I knew, there was kind of cricket trials going on in school, and I went on a Sunday morning, and apparently I was really good because I had practiced out the back garden. And obviously you've been practicing at the back garden as well. That's the next question I'm going to ask. But were you a bowler or a batter first? Which did you get the thrill for first?
I'm sure there's some home videos where I was bowling. I've always been a bowler. I'm going to say I was a bowler all the time. I probably went through stages of bowling, like spin and probably even left arm at some point, just messing about. Um, Actually, I remember I couldn't catch before. I was terrible at catching. As like
Were you what I call a crocodile catcher? One of those things.
I don't know what I was. I don't know what I was, but I couldn't catch before. And I remember brothers and sisters would have went mad and like celebrated when I took a catch. So it would have been the catching, and then probably just the bowling. I would say. I mean, probably because whenever I batted, I would always get out really quick. And then it wasn't my turn to bat then. So I'd say the bowling.
And that's pretty typical of children's development. You know what I mean? They stick with the skill that they can gain the most traction with, you know, and the thing that gives them the quickest sense of achievement.
Well, I mean, yeah, probably. And then, like growing up in the clubs, I'd say Thurles Cricket Club, I would have just been a bowler because, I mean, these clubs, you only get to bat for, let's say, 10 or 15 minutes, and then you're bowling for the rest of the session. Yeah. So naturally, your bowling's only going to get better, just with the repetition of doing it. So that's probably where it's come from.
That's something we're talking about. So do you think that's, you know, maybe if obviously there are a few factors in Ireland about why we don't necessarily produce the bigger tranche of batsmen that maybe we should. I mean, we don't get the greatest weather. I mean, the English could say the same, but maybe, you know, Yorkshire, some of the greatest batsmen from all time come from Yorkshire, one of the rainiest parts of England. But I mean, maybe there's something in that. I mean, they've learned to cut their trade or cut their teeth on difficult wickets, and maybe we're not giving our batsmen enough time. Maybe because our first class, you know, longer version of the game formats aren't allowing that kind of skill development. I mean, you just mentioned there, in kind of a microcosm, we're talking about some of the issues that we have in Irish cricket, that maybe we don't have the time to really ply our trade, and it's only the really good ones who are already kind of packaged and ready-made that get to go off to England. We incidentally, Andrew Balbirnie going off to Glamorgan, for example, is a tailor-made, packaged, ready-to-go example. Are we not maybe, you look at Kevin Peterson, for example, started off as a left-arm spinner, you know, and then became the batsman that he was. I mean, who's to know that you might not have been if you had had that bit more development, you know, more than those 15 minutes that you're talking about, that maybe it could have been you as well.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, you never know. But you look at, let's say, English cricketers, and I don't mean the ones playing for England, I mean English people. They've always been a professional unit. The country has always been able to provide people to be professional cricketers. Whereas in Ireland, it's only been in the last 10 years. I'm going to say 10. I'm not going to say 15 years, but it's in between. Do you know what I mean? Let's say in the last 10 years where you've actually had the chance to use cricket as a career. And you look at that time period then, and you have Paul Sterling coming into absolutely phenomenal form now. You've got Balbirnie, who's a brilliant batsman. You've got Lorcan Tucker, who's had a great tour out in the Wolves, or for the Wolves out in Bangladesh. You've got Harry Tech. You've got all these people who, and I'm going to use Harry Tech there and Lorcan Tucker, they're professional cricketers, and they're at a young age, so they can literally not have to work other jobs. I mean, you look, let's say the 2007 World Cup, these guys had to be postmen, they had to be farmers. So they obviously didn't have time to train 24/7, whereas these guys do now. So you just look at what Paul Sterling can do and what Andrew Balbirnie can do, with only being, let's say, full-time professional cricketers for the last, well, Sterling all his life, but let's say Balbirnie for the last like 5 years for Ireland.
Yeah.
He can now train 24/7, let's say.
Yeah.
And that's only, and look at what he's done in the last 5 years. But I mean, if you have guys, let's say in the next 10 years, when Ireland is fully, like, you can be a professional cricketer in Ireland, then when you can train all the time, you're only going to get better. So that's why I think, let's say in 2007 and beyond, why.
I think it's definitely in the short term, it's what we've got to do to try and get our players playing in those clubs, you know, for those counties, you know, playing their first class cricket. And the way they've got to sell themselves is white ball cricket. It has to be. You know, that's how they get their foothold. And from there on, I mean, we all can't have Owen Morgans, you know what I mean, who left at 18 and never looked back, you know what I mean? Played, you know, for Middlesex from 18 and still technically does. We're not, but like the thing about it is, you could make the comment as well. You look at a club like Phoenix, which has been around since 1830. You know, it's been around a lot longer than, say, association football has. But yet, like the difference in, and you could argue as well, I mean, up until the 1990 World Cup, that association football really wasn't the thing it is now, until then. And it was very much a kind of a Dublin-based, maybe Cork, maybe Waterford, a spattering up north as well, maybe Galway and United. So you had kind of outposts, very much the way you could say cricket is now in Ireland.
Yeah, but I mean, just like the funds aren't there, the facilities aren't quite there yet. But I'm very confident in due course they will come, and you will see Cricket Ireland being a big force within the cricketing world. It's just we're at the very early stages. We've only been granted Test match cricket. Was it 2018?
It was, yeah, it was. I think. Well, I was at the 2019 Test Series. Well, I was at the first game against England, but I think they had played Pakistan the previous summer, so that was 2018.
2018. I remember it being out in Jersey for the World Cup qualifiers, to qualify for the under-19 World Cup, and that was 2017.
Yeah.
So let's say 2017. We've only had Test match cricket, or the status for 4 years. And
but
look at what we've done.
This is the point I'm making, Aaron. I mean, I think the players and the clubs and the kind of the grassroots, it's not fully there, but it is certainly in as healthy a position, you might argue. Well, I don't know. I wasn't around at the time, so I can't really tell you. But, you know, there is the root of, if not the grass hasn't grown out of the root yet, but there is the root there that has been around for a long time. Cricket is a very established sport in this country. I saw a program there a few weeks ago on TG Carr, which claims it actually comes from Ireland. It's actually an Irish sport. But we'll save that for another podcast. Let's not get into that today. We'll be here all night. We'll be here all night. All I'm going to say is that this guy claims that the word over comes from the Irish over, which is like a fella doing his work. Personally, I think he was, you know, full of the blarney, if you know what I mean. But God knows. Anyway, speaking of 1830 and Phoenix, another very simple question: why Phoenix? Why Phoenix now? For you, I mean.
Why Phoenix now? I was in Cork County Cricket Club down in Cork, obviously.
Go away. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
I would say 3-4 seasons. I'm going to say 4 seasons since 2016, I think.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to get out. I wanted to move to Dublin anyway.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to live in Dublin. So I was working closely with Ted during 2019, and just talking through the possibilities of clubs up there. Now, he's very good friends with Stephen Morton. So Stephen came down to Cork, actually, and we all met in a cafe and spoke through it. And that commitment alone and that willingness to travel from one county to another to actually come see a potential player was enough for me.
And 2 questions. I mean, I think Stephen was he 1 year? Was he 1 year or 2 years there at that stage with Phoenix when he came down to see you?
I wouldn't have a clue. I don't really know Stephen's time in the club. I don't know how long he's been there. Maybe 2. I think it might have been.
I think it might have been even less than that, to be honest. I think the year before you came. I think the year before last was his first year. It was, yeah.
Didn't he? He came in halfway through a season, I think.
No. Well, he may have been around halfway through a season, but in terms of being the official coach, as far as I can remember, we had a pre-season meeting in the pavilion, and this is the season before last, where Stephen came in and made a presentation where he wants to kind of talk about, you know, the whole club doing things, you know, club cultures, similar to what he does now. Obviously, pre-COVID, we could all come into the same room and do it. But like, you could tell from him, I mean, I can imagine what that meeting was like. You can tell from Stephen that, you know, he's a kind of intense guy and will ask a question of you that, you know, other people, you might think he's kind of asking it kind of tongue in cheek, but he's actually asking you the question. He might ask you something tough like, so why should I be paying attention to Aaron Cawley? What could you bring to the club? And, you know, an Irish person doesn't ask that question. You know, you kind of go, go away with that show. I'll bring the sandwiches. You know, you might kind of faff around, but Stephen is kind of, everyone else is laughing and he's still staring at you. He's still going, so what's your answer? And I wonder, you know, was there a key moment? Obviously, the statement of coming into Cork was impressive enough, I'm sure, and it kind of made you feel that you were wanted, that you had a place up in Dublin, and it was exciting for you. But was there a moment in the conversation where you kind of felt, I'm in? I won't tell him I'm in, maybe, but I'm so in.
He's a bit of a salesman, isn't he, this Stephen? I mean, he butters you up at words. He makes you feel good. But now Phoenix has had such a good reputation. Like for a long time, I mean, the club doesn't last, what was it, 1830? That's oldest club in Ireland. I mean, you've got to be doing something right to still be standing. The location, brilliant location. My sister lived close by, and that's who I was living with for a small part of my stay in Dublin. So just everything like that made sense. And then like the facilities, having those 4 lanes of nets, pretty decent grass wickets, and obviously actually just having a good relationship with Stephen even before all the talks began. It seemed right, and I seemed like a good fit to the club, and it's a young team as well. So.
Okay, so sorry, go ahead, man.
Yeah, it's like a place you can grow with a young team, and things like this. So wait till you see what happens in a few years.
As I was saying, I was talking to as I was mentioning, I was talking to Jamie Grassi there a few weeks ago about this, and again he mentioned this, a lot of the same things you're saying, a lot of the pillars of what you're trying to put forward here as reasons, as a rationale to come to Phoenix. He was mentioning the same things because you're talking about a similar cricketer, and I hope to have Jamie on at some stage for a podcast. That, you know, and it'll be interesting to draw the comparisons between you and him. Obviously, he's based in Dublin, but I mean, you're coming from kind of outside and coming into somewhere new. Both of you have that in common, and both of you played Ireland underage as well. Both very promising young cricketers coming in. Jamie obviously arrived the same year as you. How much of a factor was that? Did you know that Jamie was going to be coming, or was he asked first? Or did you, which came first, you or him?
As I remember it, I had already said I was coming to the club, and then found out Jamie was coming. I think that I'm going to say deal. It wasn't like, I don't know what it was, but I'm going to say that
arrangement.
Arrangement, yeah. I think that arrangement was done pretty quickly, from what I can remember, whereas mine was done over the space of like at the back end of the 2019 season.
Yeah.
So I was, let's say, I had about 6, 7, 8 months of preparation time and talks, whereas I think Jamie's was done over the course of 2 or 3 months, from what I can remember.
And of course, that's purely because he heard Aaron Cawley was going to Phoenix. That's why it was. That's why it was so much quicker. Well, in fairness, he'll say it himself when he comes on. He'll say, like, you know, that was a massive. I mean, he wants to move anyway. Like yourself, he's ambitious. He wants to move out somewhere and be somewhere new on his own. But I do think that was a factor, and I'm sure he'll say it himself. He'll back me up on this. He won't leave me hanging. That hearing that you were coming as well, and I'm sure. I mean, I know. As I said to you earlier, I mean, I came from Finglas. Cricket is not played in my area. It's played, ironically, now in my area because of the large Asian community we have that live nearby. And it's wonderful. I love the idea that cricket's been played nearby because it's such a great game. We obviously both love it. We both come from areas that maybe aren't famous for cricket, but we both love it even so. And I had to travel a long distance to play cricket. My first club was Merrion. I had to get 2 buses to go to Merrion. And I went there purely because I knew people there. And I had played there a few times. The beautiful ground still is. And I had a way in. And obviously, Mort's coming to you and making you feel like you'd be wanted and welcome. So, this is the coach. I'm signing up. And similarly, when I went to Sandyford, same idea. There were people there I knew. I kind of felt I had an in. I wasn't just turning up. Ironically, Phoenix is the closest club to me geographically. And it was the place that I only ended up going to when I learned how to drive. So all the other places I had to either cycle or get the bus, or it was carnage. Imagine like cycling with a big cricket bag in your back. But I know the value of knowing somebody, and now I feel like, even though I didn't know anyone at Phoenix, I'm there now, and I know so many people, and they are now one of the main reasons why I want to stay at the club and do more for the club, because you come for the cricket and maybe you stay for the people.
Yeah, I mean, you ask any cricketer, and they say that the reason why you play the game is for your mates. Like, you make lifelong mates, like myself and Jamie. Was it under 15? No, because he would have been the year above me. So I think we started playing cricket together for Ireland when I was like the junior under 17, and he would have been the senior under 17. So like we went away to Worcester together, went out to Jersey together, qualified for the World Cup, then went to New Zealand. I even stayed in his mother's place for one night before heading to an airport or something like that. So myself and Jamie have had a great relationship. So yeah, the fact you say, and I think you weren't joking when you said it that he came to the club.
No, I'm not joking. I'm not joking. 100%. He said it like, I mean, Jamie straight up. I mean, he likes to have fun, and he likes to, talk and be honest. But that's whether he's laughing or joking or being serious, he's telling the truth all the time. And he said that was a major factor, as it would be for me if I had someone that I knew was coming that was a friend of mine and would be at least one familiar face. Obviously, he knew one or two of the lads, but to know there was a guy coming in, and not so much even someone that he knew. I mean, you could have been well established there, but it was you coming, and you were also new coming to the club too, like he was. So you're both starting from the same kind of position.
Like the same boat kind of thing, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And I think you can tell there's an awful lot more in you and an awful lot more in grass than what they're showing. And I think they're you guys are a little bit on your best behavior, and rightly so. It's not necessarily a big step up in maybe playing level. I don't know. You'll tell me that, but certainly it's metaphorically and maybe in your brain, it's a little bit of a step up, because I'm not in my usual comfort zone. I'm here on my ability. I'm here on my my potential. I can't just play off the 100 I scored 3 years ago in a cup game, or the 5 I got 5 years ago against the big team. No one really cares about that here. No one really knows except me. I've got to come in and start from scratch.
Yeah, well, you're not really going to walk into a new place and be Billy Big Balls, are you? You're going to, well, some people do.
Some people do. Some people are like that anywhere,
Yeah, but I mean, Phoenix is a place of, I find it like a people's club. I mean, all the people there are lovely. Not nothing but nice things to say about everyone there. So it kind of just, I fit into it anyway. I'm a people's person. Jamie Grassi loves to chat. So yeah, I think it's kind of fitting that that's the club we're in.
It's no coincidence that I've had you two guys on to talk. Like, I've been talking to you guys first, because yes, you are a people person, and yes, you do love to chat, and boy, so do I. The next question I'm going to ask you is, like, okay, this is one of these typical kind of, we're talking about Morts earlier. It's a real managerial business number crunching, boardroom conversation, almost like a kind of an interview question. 5 years time, at the age of what, 24? Are you 19 now at the moment, Aaron? 20?
21 years of age.
21. You see, it's the Zoom, touch up. It makes you look so much younger. So the lads are always saying, God, Cawley's only got 16. What is he? No. Okay, so in 5 years' time, you'll be 26. Where are you going to be? What TV channel am I going to have to tune in to get to watch you play?
Is this regards cricket now?
You said it might not be cricket. No, I didn't say anything about cricket. I just put it in your lap, Aaron. At the age of 26, what TV channel am I going to have to put on to watch you?
Well, I'm going to say Sky Sports. 5 years' time, Cricket Ireland is going to be shooting up the ranks, so to speak. I'm hopefully going to be a professional cricketer within 5 years' time. So tune into Sky Sports, and that's that from a cricket point of view. So there you go.
But like you said, there's obviously, a line being drawn there in your brain. That's from a cricket point of view. And there's a bit of a pregnant pause after that, Aaron. Are we talking, are you looking to kind of put your finger in many pies, not just cricket?
Well, I mean, I love to say I have the business acumen to have my fingers in a lot of pies. I mean, ideally, I'll have my, let's say, a mortgage laid down before the age of 25. That's a plan that I have, and that I'm actually I'm heading towards it anyway. So that's pretty exciting to have your own place at like the age of 25. Don't drive yet. That's actually, I'm kind of embarrassed to say it. I don't drive yet. So I'll have that within, let's say, the year. But 5 years' time, I see myself sitting pretty.
I didn't drive until I was 27, Aaron, because when you're living in Dublin, you can either cycle, get the bus, get a taxi. You're pretty set. I think it's more of an issue for people who live kind of in a slightly less urban area, that you really, in order to get anywhere, you kind of have to learn to drive. It's more of an issue, really. Would you agree?
Yeah. Well, I would agree, but I had my father. He was fantastic. He'd drive me all around the country. So
yeah, you had the taxi of dad, basically.
I had the taxi of dad, yeah. So I never had to drive, but it's just a skill you need, really. But it's on the agenda.
And do you map these things out, or is it just kind of like it's all kind of fizzing around in your head? Okay, in 5 years' time, this is going to be achieved, and that's going to be achieved. I plan to have that one done before that one, but God knows what might happen. What's the kind of minimum requirement? We'll say in 5 years' time, is it the mortgage, playing for Ireland? Is there kind of a high end and a low end expectation?
As in the timings of things?
Well, yeah, in the 5 years' time, the minimum I expect of myself, Aaron Cawley, is that I will be what?
I'm going to say a professional cricketer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to say a professional cricketer.
High end expectation, as in like extreme. Not only will I be a professional cricketer, I will be playing IPL.
Well, that'd be fantastic. I'd certainly have a mortgage, wouldn't I?
Absolutely, you could have 3 mortgages.
Yeah.
But I mean, is that something you've thought about?
IPL cricket?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd bite the hand off you if you gave me the chance to play IPL cricket, that's for sure. Is it something I've thought of? I mean, right now, I only play for the Munster Reds. Do you know what I mean? I've been fortunate enough to be a part of the academy. The IPL is a big jump away, but I mean, it'd be pretty cool to be the first Irish person to do it if that's the case.
Is there a ladder? Oh, the first Irish person, not just playing. You want to be the first person. Are you saying that we don't have players at the moment who couldn't do it?
Well, I mean, Owen Morgan's played IPL, but I want to be the first Irish cricketer if there's no one before me.
Yeah.
Maybe Paul Sterling might get a gig next year. Actually, I can see that.
The first man from Tipperary to play IPL.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, Owen Morgan's played before. Most of us have played. But is that something like, obviously you haven't been thinking about it right now, but I mean, what's the change? What's the ultimate? You want to play for Ireland? Obviously, I presume that includes white and red ball.
Of course.
Yeah. And like, where would you see yourself in terms of like a position on an Irish team? Like at your best, like where would you be on a batting order, for example? Would you not really care about that? Do you not see yourself as an all-rounder, or would you rather just like focus on the bowling?
Yeah, I've said it before. I love to be like an all-rounder. I take huge inspiration from Ben Stokes. So why can't I do it? Is what my thinking is. John Mooney, fantastic cricketer for Ireland, and he had that same kind of role. But I'd like to bat a little bit higher, maybe 5'6".
Okay, so well, I mean, Ben Stokes is more than capable of. He's batted all over the place for a Test match cricket level. He's batted a 4, he's batted a 6, whatever else. He's that kind of lower middle order. He's batted as the kind of the primo position. He's batted a bit lower down. Like if you've got the talent, it's just about balancing the side. And sometimes maybe depending on the cricketers you have around you, that might dictate where you end up playing in the sides. You might be jam packed and just be in as a kind of a number 9 or a number 10 because the batting is so long aside from you. Would that bother you?
Not at all. The chance to play for Ireland is a dream of many Irish cricketers. It's what I want to do. Whatever my role is within that team, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. So to say that, like, if I know I can bat, but I'm batting at 11 for Ireland, but I've got the chance with the new ball, of course I'm going to take that.
So it's not even just a bit, you want the new ball. I like that. I like that very much. Now I just want to get off cricket for a second. And we can't have a chat with you, Aaron, without talking about music. It has to be. I mean, I tried to coax you to have the guitar out. You got the water in the background. I'm hoping that water is being slurped to try and soften that throat up for a bit of singing. You see the smile on your face. It's like I'm such a reluctant performer. Don't give me that.
Do you want a song? Is that what we're getting at here, Dennis?
It's not necessarily where I'm getting at. I mean, this no means no, Aaron. If you say no, it means no. Okay, right? But I just want to talk about music. I mean, because I think from talking to you, I know you're a very passionate cricketer and a very passionate sports person. I mean, you have other interests apart from just cricket in terms of sports. I mean, I know you're a very keen fan of UFC and things like that. But I know music it's almost like in a separate box, and that box is very important to you as well. Where would you say your love of music? I mean, everyone most people like music. It just depends on how much you like it. But where would you say you'd say that the kind of music had its entry level with you, that you kind of realized that this is something very important to me?
When did I realize it was important to me?
Like that it wasn't that thing that's on the radio. This is something that I need in my life. There's something I choose to have. It's like realize that someone is your friend and you miss them when they're gone. That kind of way.
My dad was a professional musician for many years. So he taught me how to play the guitar. Then I suppose when, obviously you can always learn, but when you're in a position where you can make up your own music and you can write your own songs, I mean, it's a pretty good skill to have, and it's a skill that a lot of people would love to have. And I've thankfully had the brilliant teachings of my father, but I'm also pretty gifted at it as well. So probably when I've realized that, hang on, I can make up songs and make my own music, and I can listen to a song on the radio and play it, that's when I realized that, you know, it's a pretty cool skill to have, and it's a skill that I'll keep close.
It certainly is. I mean, it's a revelation to hear. It's the revelation, first of all, to hear you sing, and then you put that with your ability to put, you know, as I said, a song that you've barely known or barely heard onto the guitar. I mean, I'd struggle. I'd be tongue out and, you know, staring at the fretboard. It's difficult. As you can see, I have a few guitars here behind me, and that's purely because I have Aaron Cawley on, just to kind of remind them that there's music to be played, you know. But what I'm trying to say is that, you know, it's when we have you in a social way, when I see you on a social level, which I had the pleasure to do once or twice last year, you see a different side to you. I mean, you talk there about, I want to take the new ball, but then on the flip side, with that confidence also permeates into, I'm exceptionally talented at playing the guitar as well. Like you say it, like it's some people say it because it's almost like they're putting on their cloak of confidence. You know, I'm telling myself, it's like a self-affirmation thing. With you, I think it's just natural. It's just something that's in you, like this natural self-confidence that, you know, and I think you can't fake it with music. You have that confidence or you don't. You have to be able to put the guitar on over your shoulder and just let rip. Because if you're trying to fake it, you're going to get found out very quickly.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's say you're at a social and you're the only one with the guitar. If you're trying to fake it and you make a mistake, I mean, everyone's looking at you. So you've got to be pretty good to keep a crowd. But the confidence thing, like, I'm like, I don't know, I'm a pretty confident guy. And I think the guitar is a pretty cool skill, and like I said, it's a skill not many people have. So to have it is unfortunate.
And was it your dad playing the guitar was the first person that kind of got you interested and thought, you know, God, that is a cool thing to do? Like, you know, watching a cricketer, you know, tear a set of stumps down, and, you know, or, you know, big LBW shape, or watching, you know, a fighter. You know, what was the band or the act that made you go, oh my God? Because your dad doing it is one thing, and your dad is your hero when you're a certain age. But when you get into your teenage years, it becomes a little bit more, you know, this is like a personal choice. You know what I mean? Yeah. Was there an act, or was there a kind of as I said, was there a band or a group or a performance even that made you think, wow, this is something I want to do?
Yeah, like the guitar for me is brilliant, but I much prefer singers. I mean, I'm so thankful that I can play the guitar. And I'm so thankful for my dad putting in those hours to teach me, because it's like riding a bike. You'll never really forget how to do it. But for me, it's the singing, and Elvis Presley is obviously a huge, I'm just a huge fan of him. I mean, the man is an idol of mine, and he'll be an idol of many people forever. I think he's just phenomenal. Like the crowds he played in front of, his range, and things like this, and just the passion and the emotion that he had in his music. You can't replicate that, and you can't fake it, like you said. So Elvis Presley would have been a huge, I suppose, inspiration to get into music as well. And funnily enough, my dad was an Elvis impersonator, so to have those two side by side. But he wasn't an Elvis impersonator, but he did it a few times. But he's got a phenomenal voice too, my father.
Yeah. It was a perfect storm. I don't think the world was ready for Elvis, really. I mean, the way that it was almost like a kind of a 1-2, Elvis and the Beatles for the Western world, because Elvis came along and he was obviously an inspiration for the Beatles, along with Chuck Berry and all those kind of guys, Little Richard and whatever else. But he was the kind of a bit like the Frank Sinatra of his genre. Like there was only one Elvis, like there was only one Frank Sinatra, even though I personally prefer other singers apart from Frank Sinatra, but we won't get into that today. But I don't think the world was ready for someone like Elvis. And then the Beatles come along less than 10 years later, and you're kind of going, okay, how do I deal with this? Because music before Elvis, it's like, and that's the way you kind of nearly talk about popular music. There's the music before Elvis, and there's the music after Elvis. And I think I'd rather listen to the music most of the time that came after Elvis.
Up until a certain point, I mean, the stuff you get nowadays is absolute tripe.
Give me an example. Come on, back that up. People aren't there and want to hear what you say is tripe. Come on, let's hear it.
I mean,
the first one that comes off your head. Don't try and sugarcoat it. Come on, the first one that comes off your head.
Cardi B. You know what I mean? This.
It sounds like a ward in a hospital, doesn't it? Cardi B.
Yeah, Cardi B. The B word. Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, you got some fantastic people like Ed Sheeran's phenomenal. I think he's brilliant. John Legend is pretty good himself. You've got all these people, and I think the ones that I don't even know what style of music you'd call it, but this, let's say Ed Sheeran, pop, is it? It is pop, isn't it?
I mean, to start off, like when it was just him and his guitar, I think you could call it kind of folk pop, really, because it was kind of folk pop. It was, well, I don't even know if that's a phrase, but now, I mean, it feels like he's dropped the guitar and he's sitting beside somebody with a synthesizer. I'm not a big Ed Sheeran fan. I'll be totally honest with you. I think he's. You know what I mean? Obviously, he wants to be bigger and make a bigger sound and kind of maybe appeal to a wider audience and crossover and all that kind of jargon that they use in the industry. But I think he kind of lost a little bit of his essence when he kind of started doing the electro stuff, or the kind of the mass produced stuff, as I call the doorbell song. Do 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 do. I call that the doorbell song. Anyway,
like do you remember the floppy disks?
Yeah,
and that kind of music on like the MP3s or
MP3 or a mini disc. Remember a mini disc?
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah. Or like a MIDI file, was it?
Oh God! All I remember about that is just time and waiting and like uncertainty. Everything's so instant now. Like, I mean, you can download a whole like tranche of greatest hits in like 30 seconds now, and in those days you had to walk, or you had to cycle and you hope the thing was in stock or someone hadn't bought it in front of you. Anyway, enough about the past. Enough about the past. This is about the present. So I'm going to introduce Mr. Cawley to the premiere of Dennis's Bunsen burner, and this is one of the tackiest things you'll ever see, but hopefully we'll get some good content from it. So I'm going to share the sound. Dennis's Bunsen burner. Here we go. Okay, so as you can see, there are a number of topics here to throw in Aaron's direction. As you can see, it's called Dennis's Bunsen burner, and it's robbing Shane Warne because it's a turner. And it's random topics to put the guests on the back foot. The cricket puns just don't end on this show. So the story is Aaron will get a minimum of 2 spins. He has the option to pass or to leave, if you like, to leave one of the deliveries if he doesn't want to talk about it or he thinks it's boring. But he has to answer at least 2. Okay, so Aaron, are you ready?
Go for it, mate.
Okay, here we go. Spin number 1. Okay, so we talked earlier about the player to share a batting partnership with. We talked earlier about, being a cricketer and being, just Aaron Cawley, the virtuoso, playing with Ireland, the kind of level, where in the order that you're going to be. But a player you'd love to be in a batting partnership with. Any player, let's imagine it could be IPL, it could be a World 11 versus, an Asian 11, or God knows what the scenario could be. It could be any player from any time, someone to share a batting partnership with.
Does it have to be a cricketer?
Well, I did not expect that turn of events, but I mean, are you going to? I think I know what the answer is going to be. Are we going to still see his trousers through the pads, through the back of the pads? Is that the direction you're going here?
Since his trousers to the back of the pads.
Or shall we say that maybe he shouldn't be wearing a helmet because it might affect his hairdo? Are we talking about Elvis Presley here?
No.
Okay, right. Because we said, can it be a cricketer? Okay. Sorry.
I was just wondering.
Go ahead.
God, this is going to take some thought. A player, and it doesn't have to be a cricketer, does it?
Well, I presume, we're talking about batting partnerships.
Yeah.
We're talking about a cricketer, so might help narrow down the field a bit for you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's
I have it.
a visual. Oh, you have it. Okay,
Yeah,
go for it.
I'm gonna go Jason Roy.
Okay, and
Yeah.
what form of the game are you playing?
I'm gonna 50 over cricket. ODIs.
World Cup?
No. 3-match ODI series in South Africa against South Africa.
And where is the partnership taking place? Which ground?
The Wanderers, is that a South African? It is, yeah.
Yes. Well, you really thought of it. The Wanderers. Is that one? Yeah, isn't that the one that they have loads of space in the outfield where there's no kind of like specified seating? People can kind of camp out on the bank. Is that the one? Isn't that the Wanderers? I think it is.
What's one of the big mountains?
Say it again.
The one of the big mountains in the background.
That's Cape Town. It's Table Mountain in the background.
Okay, let's go
yeah, okay. I think the Wanderers is Johannesburg. Okay, so that's question one. And if we've got those wrong, we can always edit them out later on. Okay, Dennis Bunsen Burner. Time to go for the second question. Oh, that's going a bit weird. Hold on. Let's see if I can get that down. Okay, resume. I'm going to spin again. God, I think this is rigged. Okay. So we talked recently about, I think I remember hearing the chap that's recently just started playing for Ireland, the scrum half, and on one of the rugby podcasts were some initiation songs when playing for Ireland for the first time. Let's imagine you are playing for Ireland the first time. Let's imagine it's much closer in time than 5 years from now. Let's imagine it's within the next 2 years, hopefully. And you have to sing your initiation song. What's it going to be?
Off the top of my head, it would probably be Cocaine Blues, Johnny Cash.
Wow. I think that is a perfect lead in to give us a few bars.
Well,
I don't see any reason why not. Go for it. Did he play this in, was this a kind of a San Quentin number, or was this one of his later year songs, or what?
I think, well, I know he played it in, thank you. I know he played it in Folsom Prison when he did that live show. But I don't know the origin of the song. Can you see that there, can you?
Just move yourself down a fraction, yeah. Well, we want to see you. I mean, we know the guitar is there. We know you're not, we know the person that's switching there isn't playing the guitar. Take your word for it. So I'm going to mute myself, and this is all Aaron Cawley. All Aaron Cawley, ladies and gentlemen.
Early one morning while making the rounds, I took a shot of cocaine and I shot my woman down. I went right home and I went to bed. I stuck that 1144 beneath my head. Got up next morning and I grabbed that gun. Took a shot of cocaine and away I run. Made a good run, but I run too slow. They overtook me down in Juarez, Mexico. Laid in the hot joints, taking the pills. In walked a sheriff from Jericho Hill. He said, Willie Lee, your name is not Jack Brown. You're the dirty hack that shot your woman down. Said, yes, oh yes, my name is Willie Lee. If you've got a warrant, just to read it to me. Shot her down because she made me sore. I thought I was her daddy, but she had 5 more. When I was arrested, I was dressed in black. Put me on a train and they took me back. I had no friends for to go my bail. They slapped my dried up carcass in the county jail. In about 5 minutes in walked a man, holding a verdict in his right hand. The verdict read in the first degree. I hollered, Lordy, Lordy, have mercy on me. The judge, he smiled as he picked up his pen. 99 years in the Folsom pen. 99 years underneath that ground. I can't forget the day I shot that bad bitch down. Come on, you gotta listen on to me. Lay off that whiskey and let that cocaine be. There you go.
Wow. Oh, live performance. I love it. It's such a signature tune, that kind of ding ding doo doo. It's that little step he does in between. You kind of lead in. It kind of brings the audience in. It's like there's more to come. There's more to come. What I love about Johnny Cash, I think everyone loves about him, is like he does have that country sound, but he has the unique sound, and he is absolutely blood honest. There is no sides. There is no rubbish. It's just in between the eyes, like the lyrics that he sings, and just so easy to sing and enjoy. It's just it's just food for the soul.
Johnny Cash is brilliant. Another favorite of mine. I love his movie. Well, not his movie, but Walk the Line, played by Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, I remember he said to, I think Joaquin Phoenix said it afterwards, that he met him on the shooting of Gladiator when Joaquin was playing the Emperor. Or maybe he met him a little bit afterwards, maybe at an award show or something like that. I'm not quite sure the details. It's not really important. But there's a part in Gladiator where Joaquin has Maximus, Russell Crowe's character, tied up in chains before they have the final showdown in the Colosseum. And Johnny Cash was explaining, he said, I love that scene you did with Russell. And you stuck the thing in his back and you said, smile for me now, brother. And it was like, yeah, that's real Johnny Cash. You know, the real dirty, rotten, spit in your eye, kick sand in your face moment. That's the bit he picked out that he loved the most.
I was full of grit, was Johnny, I would imagine.
Absolutely. So, okay, the last question I'm going to ask, we're comes to the end. And I presume this won't be the first time I'll be telling you one of these, but as the first recording goes, I think we've done pretty well. And leaving it at that, I mean, I'm a primary school teacher. I'm doing this stuff. I'm a cricket coach on the side. This is another side project. And it leads me into the final question. If you weren't a cricketer, Aaron, what would you be doing?
If I wasn't a cricketer, probably be fighting in the UFC, Dennis.
Or just fighting.
Anywhere on the streets.
Well, in Tipperary, like, what was it? Was there anything else that at any stage kind of made you go, oh, do you know, I might even, cricket might, I'm not having a great season or whatever, and there's something else might be kind of, oh, I'm tempted. I'm tempted by this.
No, I mean music. I'd love to be a singer. I mean,
Aaron, you're already a singer. You mean a professional singer, someone that does it for money?
Singer, yeah. I'd love to be a professional singer. I'd like to be a chef. I like cooking. I'm a pretty good cook. Can't say Formula One. I don't drive. You're
too tall as well, Aaron. You need to build two cars to get you into one.
Yeah. If I wasn't a cricketer, what would it be? Jeez, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's a tough question.
Well, I think it helps. It helps that you're a boxer.
Yeah, boxer. I'd be a boxer.
Rather than just like an MMA, you just a flat out boxer.
Yeah, MMA is too scary, Dennis.
You're talking to me. I can't look at that stuff. I'm squeamish. I was talking to the kids today about the Passion of the Christ time at Easter. Like, I was like a grown man watching that, and I had to watch it from behind my hands. I can't deal with the kind of the blood and humans being horrible to each other. You know, I can't deal with it.
Yeah, if I was to fight in the UFC, I'd be about 205 pounds, right? I'd be fighting at one point Daniel Cormier. The size of that man. Imagine being on the floor. Imagine being on your back and that man coming down with his fist the size of a cement.
A breeze block. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No chance. I'd rather be a boxer.
Yeah. But you can stand toe to toe and you can look them in the eye for most of the fight.
Yeah, but then again, that's another tough sport. Jeez, I don't know.
I think it's oh God. You see, listen, it's a typical sports person. Like, you know, it's flip-flop, changing depending on AM to PM. Well, speaking of PM, we're well into the PM at this stage, and I want to thank you absolutely and wholeheartedly for coming on, for being brave, being the first guinea pig, and for suggesting this in the first place, because hopefully I think it's going to be the start of something fantastic. And I personally, not just on behalf of the club, I want to thank you on behalf of myself for coming on and being such a great sport and being such a great guest. Ladies and gentlemen, Aaron Cawley.
Appreciate it.
Thanks very much, man.